Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pisces-Twin podcast.
What's up?
My name is Amy, and
I'm Ciara.
we are known as the Pisces Twins. So, if you haven't checked out any of our tarot readings on either of our channel, I highly recommend you do that. So, let's go ahead and we're going to get into the subject matter of tonight's podcast. And we're going to be talking about two things that we happen to totally love and find fascinating. And that is paranormal experiences and UFOs. So sit back, grab yourself a beer, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, whatever floats your fancy, and let's get into this shit. All right. Go ahead, Ciara.
Oh, you're making me start?
Yeah, I'm going to make you start tonight.
All right. So I've definitely had quite a few little experiences when I was younger that really stand out. Some basic ones, just like photography that we've taken before.
Oh, yeah, I forgot
We've
about
had
that.
a lot
Shit.
of orbs that appeared in a lot of those photos.
And this was back before, like, some of them were actually, like, SLR. They were not...
like modern day.
Yeah, they weren't digital cameras. They were actual film cameras.
So again, it's kind of harder to... a lot of people, when they see a lot of photography nowadays that, is saying that it's capturing something paranormal, it's like, oh, you photoshopped this. Sorry, but back then, Photoshop was not as good as it is today.
No,
so.
And also it's like a lot of times people, when they do photography now with the digital, it's like, oh, that's dust on the lens.
Yeah.
Or that's just a lens flare or
Light
whatever.
flare or whatever.
You can tell the difference. I mean, it's really evident when somebody's fucked with something, or, if it's legit. Sometimes it's really hard to tell. But for the most part, I mean, you just know something's off.
But yeah, I would say, so there's three things. Well, I'll just lump it into two. So one memory that I have was when I was younger. I'm trying to think of how old I was. Definitely under the age, I don't know, maybe around 6, something along those lines. I was climbing up what is known as the power tower, which is like this little like workout stand kind of thing where you can do pull-ups, push-ups, whatever. So I'm just climbing on this as a kid because that's just what I did. I used to climb extremely high trees like a psycho, and do some really stupid shit up in trees that, thinking back on it now, could have easily gotten very, very hurt, but I didn't. So I'm climbing up this, and then I look down the hallway where this, where it was positioned. It happened to be right in line with the hallway, and at the end of the hallway was actually a portrait or a print of Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. So I climb up, I look down the hall, and sure enough, I see this bright ball of like bright sparkly light, and it's moving because the hallway was like a T. So it was like one long hallway, and then the rest of the hallway went, horizontally against that. And so this ball of light was going down the other end of the hallway, and I saw it. And I don't know, I can't even remember what my reaction to it was. It was just kind of like, oh, that's different. The other two incidents, again, probably still around this same age, that happened was one morning really, really early. I was the only one up. My parents weren't up. Nobody was up in the house. And I was trying to grab my cat because my cat had done something and she was hiding underneath the bird cage. So it's like I was trying to go underneath there to pull her out. And I shit you not, I heard a woman's voice, and this is a woman's voice that I do not recognize at all. It doesn't sound like my parents. It's like, who was this person? Right behind me saying, "Get her." And I turned around, and it's like, it was dead silent in the house. And I turned around, and there's nobody there. But I very, very distinctly heard this voice that was completely different from any voice I'd heard say this behind me. And then, of course, the words that she said were so specific to what was literally happening in that moment that it just was like, that's not just a mere coincidence. And then the other time was I was actually having a nightmare about a poltergeist in this mansion house, and I could see the poltergeist's face, and it was going around and was possessing a person who the person was then trying to attack me. And so I kind of like woke up from the dream, but I wasn't completely awake, and I heard a man say something to me right next to my bed, like right where my head was. And again, it was a man's voice that I'd never heard before. And I'm trying to recall what exactly he said, but it wasn't anything bad. It was something more like comforting. And I'm pretty sure he said somebody's name. I don't know if it was my name necessarily or another woman's name, but I just have that memory of waking up and hearing that.
Spirit guide.
Possibly.
Guardian angel. So, some memories that I have, okay, and what's really fascinating about, well, it's not really a memory, it's a freaking experience. The funny thing about this experience is it is a common experience that many people all over the world have had and been confronted by. And within my household growing up, I was not the only person to see this or witness it. Both of my brothers also saw the same exact thing. So clearly there was an entity, and I can tell you right now, it wasn't a good one. Okay. And considering what was going on in my household at the time when I was growing up, it wasn't exactly pleasant. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't a good environment to be conducive to having peaceful feelings. Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised that an entity like this would show up. Okay. So what happened was, in the house where I grew up, there's 2 stories, and my bedroom was on the 2nd floor. And so was my middle brother. Okay. So I'm the oldest, and then I have a middle brother who's 3 years younger than me. And then I have my youngest brother who's 3 years younger than my middle brother. And so me and the middle child had the 2 bedrooms upstairs. So I had the bigger one that was at the front of the house, and his was on the, if you were sitting in my room, in my bed, and you sat up. Now, what I know about feng shui nowadays, looking back to where my bed was positioned, it's probably the shittiest friggin' spot you could actually have a bed, was where I could where if I sat up in my bed, I could be looking out into the hallway. Okay. Because it was right in front of the open door. You don't want to have a bed positioned there ever. If you have to have one there, there's other ways you can deal with it. You definitely want to sleep with your door closed. And at this time in my life, I always slept with the door open. Okay. But after this experience, I always closed it. Okay. So what happened was, it was the middle of the night, and I was hearing footsteps. And it was like they were going, because we had all wood floors, and it was going from the hallway, and it was going down the stairs, back up the stairs, through the lit family room, back into the hallway. And it was just doing this repeating track. And it was this banging noise. And then I heard whispers, and I was like, what the fuck? And I thought it was like my brother fucking around or something. And I was like getting super pissed because it was waking me up. And I was getting mad because it's like, fucking A, you woke me up from my sleep, you bastard, So I sat up in my freaking bed, and I was getting ready to yell at him. And there it was, standing in the fucking middle of the hallway, right there, looking at me, was this huge, tall, black figure. Okay. And at first I thought I was just like, my eyes were playing tricks on me, because I was a pretty ballsy kid. Okay. Still am ballsy. And I was sitting there staring at it, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I realized there's nobody in my house that's that tall. Okay. And I was like, oh shit. And then it moved, and I saw it moving, and it was like, looked like it was slowly walking towards me. And I just like, and I'm like cornered. I'm literally fucking cornered. There's nowhere for me to go. So I was just like, and I felt it. I felt the energy coming off it. And it was like a fucking dementor. Okay. Like how Harry Potter, like how they describe the dementors in Harry Potter, where it's like you feel the joy just being sucked right out of your fucking body. And, you just feel that evilness and that emptiness, and that just like the sad, and it's just bad. Okay. It's just a bad, bad vibe. So I didn't know what to do. I was like, I think I was 9 years old at the time. And I completely took my blankets, and I just covered myself up. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to die, I'm going to fucking die. And literally that's what was going through my head, is just fucking kill me already. If you're going to fucking do it, just fucking do it. Don't linger, just off me. So I'm laying there and I'm literally like trembling underneath the covers, and I start to sweat, and I'm like trying to hold my breath to not make a sound, and I could hear like voices, like like fucking, it was just like this creepy whispering, and there was multiple voices, and that's the part that was so fucking weird, because there were feminine voices and masculine voices, and I was just like so fucking scared. I was so fucking terrified. I've never been so scared in all of my life, to the point where, because literally, you know how like, and it was funny because before that, when I was a kid, I used to get pissed when I'd see scary movies, because you know how like people, they like go to scream and they can't scream, nothing comes out. I'm like, just fucking scream already, you're so lame, I'm thinking that. Well, guess what? I could not scream. I could not scream. I wanted to scream when I saw it and like yell for help, but literally it was like my vocal cords were frozen in terror. I could not move. So I laid there for probably, and I mean, my senses were so razor sharp too. I was ready to like, whatever, like fight back or whatnot. And I just like laid there probably for, I think it was like an hour and a half under there. And then finally I got the balls and the courage. And I just was like talking myself into having, strength, and praying that freaking I could have, the courage to pull the blankets off and see, because I was so afraid I was going to pull the blankets off.
It's going to be right there.
Right fucking there, like how a horror movie is. But when I pulled off the blankets, there was nothing there. It was gone. So after that, I was just like, I was changed forever. I'm like, oh, fuck me. This is like, I can't believe what I saw. So I kept it to myself for a while. Then later I found out, when we were sitting around, me and my brothers, telling spooky stories and stuff like that. And I remember mentioning it, and like the looks on their faces, because they were both completely freaked out. They're like, well, we've seen the same thing.
And to second that, I've actually stayed in the house that she grew up in, and stayed, a couple days. And I actually slept in her old bedroom.
Yep, in that room.
And sure enough, when I slept in there one night, I recall this, where I was kind of woken up because I was hearing a weird sound. What I heard was like that hallway outside. It sounded like, somebody in heels, like a woman in heels, walking back and forth in the hallway, like pacing. But there was like something, as I described it and how I remember describing it, is like there was like something tied around her ankle dragging behind her, because it was like the clicking of the shoes and then like something dragging behind, like when you hear fabric being pulled over the floor. So I was just like, I just kind of woke up and I was confused, because it's like, what was that? But I distinctly heard that. And the top half of that, the house in general, like, if knowing what I know now, it's like I was totally picking up on, there's weird vibes in that house, just completely. Yeah. And especially like upstairs, I would often, because there's like a weird room where it's like open at the top of like the ceiling, and then it's just kind of like a square. Whenever I would go up the stairs and I would look at that room, I always got a creepy vibe from it. Like I was going to see like something shadowy, which I've seen, as we'll get through the podcast here, I've seen multiple shadowy things.
Yeah. So basically, other people, like friends of mine and stuff, like growing up, would come and they would stay in the house, and they would get the creepy vibe too occasionally, and they would hear shit and see shit out the corner of their eye. So clearly, it wasn't just me. Okay, it was not something in my head. There literally is weird energies in that house, and it's been a very funky fucking vibe always.
And it's not like, how old is that house?
It's old. It's an older house. Like the bottom of the house is very old. Then he put a second story on it. And when he put the second story on it, I actually think that part of it is like they used recycled or reclaimed wood.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
No.
When you are building things, because shit and juju and stuff gets attached to things.
That's why you have to be really careful if you're going to go like antiquing or like garage sales or anything. Not just like because you don't know if there might be like pests that might be attached to furniture and stuff, because you don't know how people care for it, but also literally energy and who knows what else attached to certain objects.
Just ask, Lorraine and freaking whatever.
Lorraine and Lauren.
What is his name? I was freaking... Damn it. So yeah, that whole, yeah, they would know. They freaking have the biggest collection of cursed objects out there. So anyways, so that was like a major experience I had as a kid. then what else? Okay, I got that. The footsteps things. Okay. So now another house was my grandparents' house, okay, which is on the other side of, if you live in Southern California, you know, it's like there's where the high school is, where I went. There's one side of the high school, and then on the, because the high school is literally one of the largest high schools in the entire country. Okay. And on the other side of the high school was the neighborhood that my dad grew up in and his parents' house. Well, that house, after they both passed away, it's like, you know, it was in our family, and, you know, my dad was in the process of getting ready to like rent it out and stuff. And I actually lived in it for a while with my brother when I was in college. So it was just like our, you know, bachelor and bachelorette pad. And we used to have parties there and all kinds of stuff. We had a good time in that house. But what's funny is like I had moved out of it and stuff, and he was getting ready to rent it. And it was pouring rain. My good friend at the time and she was dating this guy, and his friend, you know, came along too. So it was 4 of us. And we had like an hour or like an hour and a half before the movie was going to start, and we were bored off our ass and we had nothing to do, and it was pouring rain. So I'm like, oh, you know, let's go to the house because it's empty right now. We can just chill there and sit around and smoke a bowl or something, you know, which, you know, is what you do when you're young in Southern California. So we're like, okay, let's go check it out. So we went there, and there's no electricity. The electricity wasn't on, but I knew there was candles inside the house. Because I put them there. And so I went, got the candles, I lit them. We sat down on the floor in the living room, and we were just yucking it up, joking around, having a good time, getting a little lit. And then one of the guys, he got up and he went into the bathroom to go to the bathroom. And then when he was walking out of the bathroom, and now understand this, these 2 guys know absolutely fucking nothing about me or my family. I just met them. All right. So one of the guys, he's really tall, dude. He came out of the bathroom, and he's standing there in the doorway. And this is a teeny house. It's a teeny craftsman bungalow from Southern California. And he's standing there in the doorway. He goes, fuck. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I swear to fucking God, I just saw an old man sitting right there in a chair. And I'm like, where? And he points to where it was. And here's the fucking creepy part. That was where my grandfather's chair was, and he used to sit all the fucking time. And he said there was an old dude sitting in the freaking chair just glaring at him. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I totally got chills all over my body. I'm like, dude, that's my grandfather probably. And yeah, this is his house, and you're a stranger in it. So I was deliberately fucking with the guy to try to make him even more freaked out.
Yeah, as one does.
But yeah, he saw my grandfather's ghost sitting there, like going, what the hell? He was probably watching us going, what the fuck are you doing now, girl? You know, yeah. I mean, who knows? It's like, it just kind of blew my mind. I've never forgotten that story because it just blew my friggin' mind, because this guy's a total perfect, you know, stranger, knows nothing about my family or anything. And he accurately described my grandfather, which was really a trip. What were you going to say?
Oh, it's Lorraine and Ed Warren.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember. God damn. All right, so moving right along. We're going to fast forward here to, what was it? 2000 and, was it 9?
For
the shadow creature.
No, that was more like, 2010, probably more like 2010.
2010 probably.
Somewhere around there.
I think it's like 2010, 2011, but I think it was more like 2010.
Yeah.
So in our old house, okay, we had this little house. It was our first house that we bought. And first off, I have to say where I'm living. Okay, this is where the United States started. So think about that for a minute.
Very old land.
Really old, with much bloodshed that has occurred, much
history,
much
so
shit
to speak,
that has gone down here, okay? And considering I am literally sitting on, you know, the Powhatan tribe's land, basically, I'm not surprised that things occur around here.
But where this house was that you're telling that story was not in this area.
No, it's not. It was across the other side of the York River. Okay. And that area is technically is older than the area we're in right now.
That's true.
Okay. It's where the Hessians all ended up living and stuff like that. Okay. So, what's really fascinating about this house is that this house was new. Okay. This house was brand fucking new, newly built. So there's no
only one other couple was living in the house.
Yeah.
So nobody else besides that. And both of those couples were alive and living and perfectly fine. So,
anyway, we're sitting in the front in the living room, and we were watching TV.
We were watching Dancing with the Stars.
Yes. And we like our Derek. So back when Derek was even doing it. So anyways, we were sitting there and we were getting ready and the show was just about to come on. So it wasn't like it was some witching hour, some weird late hour or anything like that, right? So whenever we sat and we watched TV, Shadow, the cat, he would come and sit on, everybody had their little spot. Okay. And the cat would sit on the
arm of the
couch next to, it was either
whoever.
Yeah, whoever. But so we're sitting there, nobody's moving, everybody that's in the house is sitting right there. All the lights are on, okay? Then all of a sudden, we see movement out of the corner of our eye, and all of us,
including the cat,
we turn our head and look, and here walking from the kitchen through the dining area and into the laundry room is a dark, shadowy figure. And as it moved past the sliding glass doors, there was like those long vertical blinds. They ruffled a little bit. So whatever the fuck that was, it had power to it, and it was able to move the blinds as it walked past. We all completely flipped the fuck out. I was like, what the fuck was that? And even the cat was completely like puffed up and was just completely freaked out. And what's weird, before this happened, I had woke up like when we first moved into the house, and it's on that same exact ley line. This is what's so funny is where my side of the bed was in the bedroom. All right. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night because I felt like there was a presence there. And there was, when I opened my eyes, standing over me was a person, okay? And they had curly, short hair. They had black sunglasses on that are like the Wayfarer style. They had a buffalo check flannel on that was buttoned all the way up to the neck. They were very, very pale, and they had black pants on, and they were just standing there completely fucking still. And I thought maybe somebody freaking had broken into my house, and I was going to have to, pull out a gun, pop a cap in their ass or something. Or, because I always slept with a retractable baton under my pillow because I was alone a lot. And I had, creepy experiences being a single woman alone in the house, in places that I wasn't always accustomed to, like new places, like because I was moving around a lot, military life, So I had that under there, and I was like getting ready to pull that sucker out and kick some ass when it just dissipated. And I was like, what the hell was that? What was that? And I mean, I was like terrified, but at the same time, it was almost like at this point in my life, I was just like more accepting of things like this. Mm-hmm. So it was just like I was in a new house, and I was just like, I told, my man, I'm like, hey, there was something in this room last night. What the fuck? Do you think somebody's dead and buried in the back?
Probably.
Because we had like an acre of land, and it was just like, open, and there's a creek back there and stuff. And, the way that they were dressed, it very much reminded me, it was kind of almost period-ish.
Yeah.
The way that they looked, it almost looked like I want to say the 50s, because the way that they looked and the way the style of their hair was and their sunglasses. So it was a very, very odd experience. And then, of course, we later had the ghostly, whatever you want to call it, shadow person go through but that's not all in this house.
No.
So you want to tell the other part?
Sure. So there was another incident in this house that was really effing weird. So we were all asleep, and all of a sudden, for no reason at all, and these were separate things that had no relation to each other, the smoke alarms went off, and in her room, there was an older TV. The older TV turned on to just like static noise. And literally everybody woke up and was freaking out because literally it sounded like the house was on fire. Like it sounded like apocalypse because anything in the house that could make a loud blaring sound was making that sound and just going off. And like literally we all like piled up in the same room, just like staring at each other like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah, it was like 3:00 in the morning.
It was like super, and for no reason.
3:00 in the morning.
For no apparent reason. Everything went off all at once and then it just stopped.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of synchronicity and 3:00 in the morning, for many, 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 many years, I woke up at 3:33 a.m. for years. So, yeah, 333 had been stalking me for decades, which I think is fascinating. And back then, of course, I didn't know what the hell that was. And I always thought it was very odd. And I started, when the internet was getting more and more, everybody was using the internet more. I would try to search for information about it, and there wasn't much out there, but now there is. So it's kind of interesting. So, there was another experience that I had in my house that I grew up in as well. That was really frigging weird. I'm pretty sure I walked into an entity. And what's funny is it was in the same exact space as where that big, tall shadow figure was. Okay. And I was running through my house, and I was running, and it's daylight. Okay. It's broad daylight. And I'm running to go grab something out of my room really quick. So I'm running up the stairs. And once I walked into the hallway, it was like I ran into a brick wall of hot, searing air. And it went poof like that, like on both my ears. And it felt like as if two hands came on, and this is horrible. And I think they call it boxing your ears.
Yeah.
Where, it felt like two like masculine hands just went bam and like slammed my ears on either side of my head at the same exact time. I hate
that feeling.
And I just started trembling all over my body, and I was just like frozen there for a minute. I'm like, what the hell just happened to me? Because it was so obvious, and like my hair kind of like flicked. I mean, it just like I felt like I was completely electrocuted, and it was just the oddest, strangest, weirdest thing, and it kind of hurt. I mean, the ear part definitely hurt. And like I said, it's in that same exact hot spot where I saw that big, tall thing.
The vortex.
Whatever the hell it was, man. I'm telling you, it was some fucked up shit. So that was something else that occurred there. Let's see. I'm looking. I took some notes, so I'm seeing what else I have on here. We pretty much have talked about all those. Lately what's been occurring for me and what's been happening a lot for me is I see orbs a lot, but they're not white. They are this really intense blue color, and I will see them out of the corner of my eyes, and sometimes they'll just like shoot across the room or something like that, and it's like I don't even flinch when I see them. It's like, okay, whatever. And I'll have that experience, but it's so weird because most people, when they see orbs, it's like they're white, but this is very blue. And it's like, I want to call it like that Christmas tree light blue, the blue
very,
LED lights that you see nowadays they're so like, they hurt your eyes to look at because they're so blue. It's like that, which is really friggin' weird. And sometimes they'll be bigger, sometimes they'll be smaller. It's just a very odd, weirdness about it, but it's like I just accept it, and I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
And considering that I've been so attracted to the color blue,
makes sense.
Right, exactly. So
I would say that's pretty similar for me, especially for this year, largely in part of just like diving more into all of this sort of subject matter and finally like coming out about it and like just finally fully embracing it. Is when I was younger, I can look back on things now and realize how much I was picking up on I guess you could say, like the spiritual stuff, the other realms and stuff, because there would be areas like in my own backyard, and it's just like kind of like a fun kid thing, I guess. I thought of it, but now looking back on it more, like there's probably more to that than I realized, because it's like there would be certain spots, or it would just be like walking, because we did a lot of hiking, and I just like recognize spots that be like, oh, that's like where the fairies live or something. Like as a kid, like I recognize spots like that, and even now I can still kind of pick up like, oh, that's something. It's just like the energy about it.
Speaking of that, I actually mentioned this in the video that is processing right now that I did today, which should be up tomorrow for you guys. It's a pick a card. When we were house hunting, okay?
Oh,
all right.
Talk about funny vibes.
When you go house hunting, you guys, here's a little tip. If you walk into a house and you feel funky about it, I don't care how freaking wonderful it looks, get the fuck out.
Just no.
Just turn away and leave. Do not even consider it, because you're not meant to be there. All right?
Nope.
So I have two different stories about that. One that didn't happen to me and one that did. So the one that did is when we were house hunting, we went into this neighborhood, and the house was like a nice house, 2-story house, newer house, stuff like that. But the minute I walked into it, I felt like utter and complete shit. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like something bad had happened there. There was definitely a bad vibe, a bad feeling. And then when I started walking further into the house, I got extremely dizzy, and I felt like I was going to puke. It was like, no. And just the vibe there was just bad. So, I mean, the house itself looked great, and the real estate agent looked at me like, what, are you crazy? What do you want to leave? And I'm like, I want out now. So when we left and we got in the car, my man goes, hey, you didn't look too good. You don't look too good. What happened there? You look like green almost. I'm like, yeah, because I felt like I was going to fucking throw up. That place had bad vibes. I'm glad we didn't stay, and it's just like I picked up on it right away. Okay. That I'm pretty sure somebody died in the house, number one, and they were not a very nice person, or they were very angry, one of the two. So I was like, I don't belong here. Let's go. The other thing that occurred was when my grandmother passed away, my mom sold her house. And it's really weird because when a family came in, there was a mom and a dad and a little girl. And the little girl was she went up the stairs and she completely flipped out. And she just started crying, and she was hysterically freaking out. And, she said she was like, she saw a lady or something like that. And it was just not good. So the child picked up. I guess my grandmother wasn't into that family or something. No. I don't know. And like scared the shit out of the kid or something. Something occurred in that house. And, the little child picked up on it really hardcore. So I don't know what the deal was with those people. But yeah, that was kind of trippy to hear that story. So I'm just curious as to how many of you out there have experienced anything paranormal or seen anything like that. Or
yeah, definitely share your stories down in the comments if you feel comfortable sharing them, because we love hearing about other people's stories and the experiences and similarities of things that happen.
Yeah, and we love to watch YouTube videos about it as well.
Yes,
some of them like that. Like one of our favorites is to watch is Nuke's Top 5. And he usually does really good job with his videos.
Yeah, because he selects decent videos, and then he
does research on them.
And then leaves it up to you to decide like what you think.
Some of them seem a little bit like but then like others you're like, oh my god,
there's no way.
What about the what are the Middle Eastern guys?
Yeah, I love the Middle Eastern guys and ghost hunters.
The ghost hunters wild. Over there, like in Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, they are ballsy as all get out.
They just kick down doors.
They literally kick down the doors, and they will go charging at the ghost, screaming, in Arabic.
Well, it's not ghosts. They oftentimes refer to them as jinn.
Yeah, well, that's what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, considering the water tank thing that we saw.
That was
my God, you guys. Nuts. Some serious
poltergeist That was the most crazy one I think he's shown on his channel.
Yeah, I literally freaked out at that one. Okay, and there's some stuff there was a one that was They were in the murder house where I can't remember their name right now.
The Connecticut one is really good.
The Connecticut house. Oh shit, no, that's Maine.
Yeah, the Maine. I think it was Maine or Connecticut. There's one channel that he's featured more than once where a guy is living. The house used to be, I think, a morgue.
Yes, it was a mortuary. I know, right?
I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, it's like he literally has a very, very prevalent like shadow being thing.
It's not good.
It's gnarly to watch it.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there is also a what was I going to say? The house that the guy. It was in the news recently. Yeah. It's horrible.
Who killed his wife,
his pregnant wife, and his children. In Colorado.
Because this particular video was actually captured, the video, by
the investigators, by the cops themselves. Yeah. Filmed this. And they went inside the house and they literally caught entities and actual voices and everything else and things falling and all kinds of stuff. So the spirits of the mother and the children are still there. And they literally whispered the names of the kids and you could hear the children laughing. It was insane. So check out Nuke's Top 5. He's really good.
Binge-worthy content.
Yeah, seriously. We watch it every time he puts out a new video.
He usually posts every Saturday.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell your mortuary stories.
So what I was getting to is like this year in particular, I've become way more sensitive and aware to seeing stuff. Like I often see, actually this was happening my whole entire life, but I just kind of shrugged it off. As like, it's just like, I saw something moving out of the corner of my eye. It was just my imagination. It was nothing. I don't think that anymore because I know the difference because my intuition just tells me. And so, of course, this year I've become way more sensitive. I actually did see a shadow not too long ago up in one of the rooms. And it was very obvious. But, of course, if you guys watched our previous podcast, then you know that I have a little job that I do working at a funeral home. And so, of course, working at a funeral home involves certain things. And sure enough, since being there, I have seen, nothing too crazy, but definitely, movement out of my corner of my eye. I actually did see a shadow briefly when I was being interviewed. But I think one of the most recent ones that really kind of like stopped me and I kind of went back and I did a double take. I usually do that when it's like a bigger thing. It's like I'll like go back and do a double take just to make sure. But it was very, very early in the morning where just opening up, the doors weren't even open yet. So there was nobody else in the building. And there is a lounge area and then a hallway. So I was going to go into the hallway to go to the back, and the door to the lounge was open. And sure enough, it's like I could have sworn I saw a man sitting in there. And I went back and I double took, and there was nobody sitting there. So that was pretty obvious. I think then another one that was more obvious to see it was sitting inside the office where I work. And I was talking to a coworker, and like between her and me, briefly, it's like I could have sworn there was an older woman standing there in, very clearly like bright patterned like flower shirt or dress or something. So it was very obvious it was not my coworkers because they don't wear anything like that. No. So that's just a few things. Again.
What about the doors?
Oh, fuck. Doors. I forgot about the
crazy.
doors.
This is some crazy shit.
So lately, we've had a situation. I wasn't thinking too much of it. Actually, there's 3 cases now with the door.
No way.
But the back door that we come into in the morning, the bottom lock kept locking. And so one of my coworkers, it's like I was unlocking the door and she was like, she tried to get in, but it was locked. And she was like, oh, I need to grab something, make sure that, you don't lock me out, kind of joking thing. And so I was like, oh, of course not. So I unlocked the doors, both of the latches. I come in, I start heading into the main part of the building. And sure enough, I hear her banging on the back of the door and I turn around. I'm just like, what the hell? Somehow the bottom lock had twisted itself and locked it. And I was just like completely flabbergasted. I was like, I swear I did not lock you out. I don't know what just happened. And that same day, it's like it happened. Actually, no, it was the next day. It happened again. It actually happened like 3 times with the back door. And it's like I watched, because I was on my lunch break, and I watched, colleagues were going in and out of the door. And then all of a sudden, it's like it sounded like I had earphones in. It sounded like somebody was knocking the door, but I checked and I didn't see anybody. And then sure enough, here comes another one of my coworkers, and I saw her coming, and I was like waiting for it. She tried to open the door. The bottom lock was latched. And so I got up, I unlocked it, and I was just like, I don't know what's happening, and nobody else knows what's happening with this door locking.
You guys need to burn some fucking sage.
Seriously.
And salt and burn.
But what's even weirder is that same day after I got done with my lunch break and I went back up to the front, some people came in and I greeted them, and then they were like, oh, do you, something's up with the door. And so I look, and sure enough, the front door was like jammed open because somehow the front latch was turned as if to lock it. And it was like stuck outside. And I was just like, how the hell did that happen? Because nobody was messing with it. And then I've had a couple times now. So we have that front door, we have a back door, and then there's a door that separates, the main part of the building to the back of the building where it's just for staff. And so that particular door, it can be like, it's not super heavy or anything to open, but there's been a couple times where I've gone to pull open that door and it just does something funky. It like feels like there's a really hard pressure on it, like somebody's trying to push the door closed while I'm trying to open it.
Yeah.
Which freaks me out sometimes, because I don't want that fucking door to come flying back at me.
Oh my God.
Like that actually crossed my mind today, where it's like, I make sure my hand isn't in the way, because then
Shit.
The thought crossed my mind,
Okay,
so I'm going to be very paranoid about it.
It crossed your mind for a reason.
Yeah, so it's like,
there's a pissed off entity in there. You need to freaking burn some sage in that place.
I'm sure there's all kinds of things that come through there.
Of course there is. There's nothing but
But
dead
yeah, I'll
people.
just be sitting there and, working at the desk in the front. My little office door will be open and nobody's around. They'll be off somewhere else. And I just see something moving out, like in front of me, and I'll look up and there's nothing there. I've had that happen so many times.
Yep. So anyway, like we said, if there's anything else we can think of, we'll definitely put it, we'll bring it back up. But we want to move on to our other subject matter now, which is the topic of UFOs. So the question is,
it's totally raining right now.
I know. Do you believe in them or do you not believe in them? Have you seen one, or do you think it's just government stuff? I mean, what is your guys' opinion? What is your opinion on UFOs? I have several.
I have,
and I have actually seen them. So, yeah. What I saw, it was the only other moment besides what I just told you about where my vocal cords could not move. This was the other moment. All right. And what's amazing about it, because when I was growing up, people who saw UFOs were generally referred to as freaking tinfoil wearing hat freaks or redneck dipshits out in the middle of freaking yokel land, whatever, tipping cows or some crap like that. It's very derogatory. And people who had spotted these or seen these were made to look like freaking crazy people, basically, and that they were fucking full of shit or total idiots. Then a man named Bob Lazar, thank God, came out and started a freaking whole, throwing a big fat wrench in everybody's freaking plans of trying to cover up this shit. So we'll get into that in a second. So I'm going to tell you about my experience. What happened was, and of all places, okay, because I always thought it was some backwoods freaky place like in West Virginia or something where something like this would occur. But what happened to me was in fucking Los Angeles, okay? LA, all right? Busy ass urban sprawl Los Angeles. And what happens was I was coming out of a house and it was not dark yet, okay? The sun was going down. So it was like that twilight hour where it was still light but slightly dark, but not dark enough yet. And my habit that I've always had from childhood is the minute I step outside my door, the first thing I do is look up. That's just what I do instinctively for some reason, as I look up into the sky and I check it out. So like this was just like any other normal, late evening, evening hour. I came outside. I was going to leave. We were going to go get something to eat or something. And I looked up in the sky, and where we were at, LAX is not that far really away. So you're used to seeing planes and stuff like that because they literally take off. This was in Redondo Beach when I saw this. Okay. So, like LAX is just up PCH, like a couple cities. It's not even that far. So, I figured it was a plane, right? Because you see the lights on the plane, how they flash. But then I realized these lights were not flashing like how a plane's lights flash. Then I realized it was light enough to see that there was no plane body. Okay? And I was like, what the hell am I looking at? And it was these orbs of light. And they were in a group. They were flying in formation. And they kind of changed color. But not like, it wasn't red and green, okay? There was orange, and then it was like blue, and it was white. It was very weird. It was just like kind of like changing color. Mainly orange though, all right? And they were flying in this perfect like V formation, kind of like how geese. And then all of a sudden they like poof, and they like kind of split out. And then they did this like little dance thing where they were spiraling around each other. And then boom, they went into like a single like file line, and then one by one they just shot vertically straight up in the air so incredibly friggin' fast. And I was just like, I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? And I was like legit like in total awe, like super excited, super happy, but terrified like for my life all at the same time. That's how it felt. It was the most phenomenal experience to be looking at. Because, when you see ghosts and stuff, it's like, ooh, scary, woo, it's a ghost, And but as humans, we expect to see ghosts, kind of. You know what I mean? It's like we've heard the lore about them for so long, and it's like, ooh, ghosts, So it's like, it's creepy to see a ghost. It's kind of, you're stunned, but it's not the same as seeing a friggin' UFO, because this is literally some otherworldly shit that you're seeing.
It's more tangible.
Yes, it is. So it was like they shot up, and then like one by one they shot up, and then they would go pop, pop, pop. It was like bubbles bursting. They just literally just dissipated and they were gone. So, I mean, when I think back and I look at it, and it's like I'm counting them in the sky, there was 6 or 7 of them, okay? Which is a very, when you think about those numbers, that is a very significant numbers, especially the 7, considering there are Russian astronauts who said that out in space they were approached by 7 angels.
It's also a very important number in Buddhism as well.
Yeah.
Many other religions.
So when I saw this, I was just like, I could not believe what I was seeing. And I was just standing there completely fucking shocked. And my honey was standing there by the car, and he's like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, did you see that? He's like, no, of course not. Because he's always looking at the ground or something like that, whereas I'm always looking up. Okay? I'm like, there was just some fucking UFOs. I don't believe this shit. I am freaking the fuck out. Oh my God. I just saw a fucking UFO. I'm freaking the fuck out. Oh my God. I'm just like, I couldn't even get my shit together. So immediately we turned on the radio, and if you are from Southern California, like you grew up probably listening to K-Rock. So it was K-Rock, and literally there were people calling in on the station saying, that they were asking if anybody else had seen it. So it wasn't just me who saw the things, these orbs, whatever the fuck they were. Clearly other people had seen them. And then, of course there are the Phoenix Lights, and it's kind of funny because the Phoenix Lights, if you don't know what those are,
it's one of the most famous UFO
mass sightings of UFO. Okay. Even what was it? The senator or the governor of Arizona saw it.
Yeah, literally everybody.
Guess who called it in, though, you guys? Guess who called it into the what was it? The FAA or whoever it was? It was fucking Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell was flying in with his son to Phoenix because he's a pilot, and he was flying him in to meet his girlfriend. And so he's coming in for a landing. He's like, yeah, there's some weird lights. What the fuck is this? And he literally reported it. And so he was one of the witnesses to it, which I think is super cool.
And, and what she saw in LA, it's actually more common than you'd think, because over the years, a lot of people have witnessed those. But what's really funny is when you witnessed those lights, it was in 1995, and a lot of the major sightings, including the Phoenix lights, was like 1996 and upwards.
Yep.
So that's pretty wild to think about.
Yeah. So I basically saw it before that. So, and the Phoenix lights was also bigger and massive.
Massive. It was a very
so it was like the mothership
event.
Kind of appearing. Okay, so whatever it was.
Oh, the Battle of LA. Also,
that was in the 50s.
Yeah, it was
40s,
in the
50s. 40s, 50s?
40s or 50s. That was another pretty well documented
mass sighting. Yeah,
because
of course.
a lot of there was like shooting involved, trying to shoot it down, trying to figure out what it was.
Was it the end of World War II or was it during World
War
II? So that's why everybody was sketching out.
I think it was when like the Cold War was like going to heat up.
So they were like sketching out anyway. So everybody was on edge because there was all kinds of stuff going on, which is kind of funny because when people have been abducted, one of the first things that a lot of people have experienced, including Admiral Byrd, was that they said, you need to reel in your violence and stop this warring now and stop messing around with the atom and nuclear weapons, because this is going to end badly, not just for you but for everybody. So I feel like what the message is there is that whatever we do, and when you fuck with nature in that way, when you're creating an atom, you're splitting atoms, aren't you? That's what a nuclear bomb is.
Something along those lines.
So it does something. It causes a ripple through the universe. It does something nasty that affects other living entities elsewhere, I think. So, and look what it does to the earth. I mean, my God, ask the people in, Russia and Chernobyl and, in Japan and stuff, the freaking havoc it causes. And it freaks me the fuck out because across the river from where I live, there's a nuclear power plant. And they're phasing them out, thank God.
Yeah. And going back to that, if you're not familiar with who Admiral Byrd is, that leads into a specific what is the word I'm looking for?
Conspiracy
It's
not
theory.
A conspiracy
It
theory,
really isn't, though. And I have my own kind of theory about it. But essentially, a prevalent kind of idea, once you start diving into the UFO subject, you'll be introduced to all these other things. And one is the idea of sort of, I wanted to say Middle Earth, but it's not Middle Earth. It's Inner Earth or Hollow Earth, the Hollow Earth
I think
theory.
It's a portal.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think as well. Because especially, I could probably talk a whole podcast on this, my whole theory, because when I look at everything. I look at all the different mythologies. I even consider some of the stories from biblical, whatever it may be, and I kind of just look at everything from a big picture perspective.
Yep, me too.
And the huge similarities between things. But especially one of my favorites is like the story of the Fae. And they live under the hill. They live in the earth. And they travel through portals.
And they're pretty. And that's what Admiral Byrd saw. He saw some hot, tall blondes.
What happened is this man, Admiral Byrd, he is a very well decorated, serious
admiral in the Navy.
And so he's well respected. He's not a crazy loon. But he went on an expedition. He was flying, and he wasn't alone either.
No, he was with his guys.
To what, the North Pole?
North Pole.
They were flying over the North Pole, and all of a sudden, something happened where they got sucked in. And they ended up...
Well, they saw like greenery and all this green, where normally at the North Pole, it's just ice and white, okay, with snow. And all of a sudden it was lush green, and he saw like a mammoth or something like that.
Yeah, like mammoth and like kind of like ancient creatures roaming around all of a sudden. And then
they were abducted basically and pulled in by like flying saucers.
Yeah, these other weird flying machines, as he described. You can find the whole his whole like
because the Pentagon covered it up.
Yeah, but I think it got leaked online somewhere. So
It
you
did.
can read the
and they have the Freedom of
documentation.
Information Act. So but they still like blot out a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
you can have access to files now, but you're not going to get to see all of it probably. But what's really interesting about, oh God, I've lost my damn train of thought. I hate it when that happens.
But anyway, they get reeled in by these other flying things. They land, they're forced to land, and they're taken in to, what do they refer to them as? Like a sage, or like kind of like a leader of some sort.
Yeah.
And when they went in to meet this dude, he told them about and warning them about the whole nuclear
Yeah,
warfare.
and they were really
concerned
tall.
about it.
They were really tall. That's
and
what he said.
a lot of blonde people.
Yeah. Very, very Alfheim.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what it sounds like to me.
Which would make sense. I mean, again,
And it's
because
in the
like,
north.
Yeah, and they went through a portal. It's like the 9 worlds.
Exactly. Very interesting. So maybe he was in fucking Valhalla almost. Yeah, so Admiral Byrd is a very interesting character. Definitely read about him. And when he died on his deathbed, he released his journals and was like adamant about them being revealed so that people know. So the government definitely... See, nowadays, it's not the government you have to worry about so much as private sector, because private sector, a lot of government, everything government is all contracted out nowadays. I think private sector people have more power, and the thing about it that's scary is they don't have to tell you shit. They don't have to tell the government anything. They don't have to tell the public anything because they are protected. Like confidentiality clauses and stuff, that they do not have to release any information about anything that they're working on. So everybody with their, hey man, don't trust the government, man. Let's watch out for the government. The government's bad. It's like, no, bitch. The government is fucking weak and pathetic and retarded. You have to watch out for the private sectors because they are the ones
They
who
can
control.
do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want. Bob Lazar will tell you that. Okay. Speaking of Bob Lazar, when Admiral Byrd was referring to these things, it's like when Bob Lazar went to go work at Area 51, they had several of these, quote, UFOs and these
different
craft
types.
and different types. And some of them look like they had been shot down. Like,
Yep.
It makes me think of the battle over freaking LA.
LA.
Or whatever you were saying. So there were several of these. And, if you want to see the most awesome freaking interview with Bob Lazar, even though I'm not a fan of what's his face,
Joe Rogan.
But
literally
his
Joe
interview,
Rogan
that
with him-
interview was like the best one I've ever seen. That whole documentary on Bob Lazar, that didn't tell you shit.
It really didn't. If you really want like good details, and especially if you're already like fairly familiar with kind of the Bob Lazar story, watch the Joe Rogan interview because it reveals so much more detail.
Yeah.
And he gets into more detail about it. It's very, very fascinating.
It's way good. It's like I was like let down because I was so excited to watch the Bob Lazar freaking documentary, but there was all shit I already knew. I'm like, tell me something I don't know, bitch. It's like I want to hear the juicy, gossipy details and the nitty gritty crap. So, definitely watch the Joe Rogan. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Joe Rogan, but that interview, he is very good at interviewing people. And he got some stuff out of, Bob that nobody else has. So I think it's really, really cool to go have a listen to that. It'll blow your friggin' mind. Okay. So a lot of these craft are kind of what Admiral Byrd, like some of them are literally what he described, and that he saw and things. Honestly, when I saw those orb things, it's what goes through my mind when I saw those is those are sentinels. They're collecting data. Okay.
Yeah, they could not even be actually piloted by anything living.
And then, the whole story about the little green men, mean the little gray men? They literally have bodies of those. Yes, they do exist. And they were told because one of them actually survived. So here's the thing, you guys, for all you United States people, we fucking suck at space. Okay? Know this, live it, learn it, suck it up and know it. The people who rule that shit are the Russians. They kick ass at it, okay? They're so freaking much better at it. They are way more advanced than us with their technology when it comes to that. They're just better all around at it, okay? So
and they've been very much obsessed with it. For a very,
and they're
very
the ones
long
who
time.
had, because there's been several UFOs that have crashed.
And not just here in America, but also
no, but there was one that
Russia.
crashed in Russia and they lived. The things inside of it actually lived. So, basically what Bob was saying was that the grays are actually from Zeta Reticuli.
Yeah.
That area of space. So yes, there is shit out there. Those are very small. They're very small. Like the ship that Bob went in was very tiny inside. So that's more of a gray type ship. But
The sports model.
The sports model is what he called it. Yes. My opinion of what these grays are is they are like genetically bioengineered living organisms sent out to collect data. Like they're sentinels. I feel that that's what they are. Intuitively, that's what goes through my mind completely, when it comes to that all the way.
And obviously, because of Bob Lazar outing, there's plenty of reversed alien technology. I mean, the TR-3B is a classic example of that. And so really when you're looking at UFO sightings, you have to be able to distinguish between this is something
we created
and something that we did not create. Because even though I think, they're reverse engineering, and again, if you listen to Bob Lazar talk about it, we still couldn't get exactly what these things were because of the one particular element they used. We still can't create that artificial gravity in the way that these ships were using it.
So they say,
at least back then. Who knows now?
Yeah, the technology, we have like 100 years to catch up or something like that. But then there are different theories about the fact that, they're hiding things like secret, private sectors have this technology. Because recently in the New York Times, and you can Google this and look it up, there are several Navy pilots who have come out, and it was in the paper, about UFOs being pursued by UFOs when they're flying. And there was the whole Tic Tac thing that was out there, the Tic Tac craft that they were showing, that was like the footage from, supposedly from the Pentagon that they showed of, these Navy pilots trying to chase down a UFO. And it's kind of funny because they all say the same thing. I wish I could fly it.
Of course.
Because they want to fly it. Seriously, though.
And also, it's like, if you want another subject, you want to add some more questioning about, is this something man-made? Start looking into USOs. Yeah. Which are, submerged UFOs.
Well, most of the UFOs, so think about it. If you're going to come to Earth, where's the best place to hide? Under the ocean, because nobody's going to fucking see you. The most of Earth is water. So there are more craft and more sightings over water and underwater than there are in the air and on land.
And those are the ones that are particularly that doesn't seem normal or remotely normal.
It's we have creatures here living on planet Earth that are completely alien in nature.
Like an octopus.
Like an octopus, yes. Their DNA is
alien.
It is completely alien.
There is literally, if you read into
for reals, alien, okay?
There's nothing else genetically like an octopus here on Earth. They are completely unique, and not to mention that their whole entire body is essentially a brain. And then they can regenerate parts like nobody's business.
So yes, they are doing lots of experiments and stuff, and using the genetic codes and DNA from octopuses to try to reverse aging and all kinds of stuff, cure cancer, you name it. They use that DNA and stuff.
And they're literally incredibly smart too. It's like there's just nothing like them.
They're very crafty. And I remember that diver that we saw, was it a YouTube video?
Probably.
There was a diver who kept coming to the same location all the time, and they would deliberately leave little gifts and puzzles and things for the octopus to do, and they literally made friends with this octopus, and would oh my God, I just saw something. How weird. We're sitting here talking about this shit, and I just saw something over there in front of the door. Wow. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's a little creepy. Yeah. Anyway, so this, octopus, it was a she, I believe, that was doing it, learned how to communicate with the octopus. So just because somebody can't speak in, like how we do doesn't mean, it can't communicate.
And again, look at dolphins. They're also extremely smart as well, and very, very unique as well as creatures go. Because again, if you read more about them, it's like they can be quite human-like, because it's like they play, they
Have sex.
They have sex for fun.
For fun, not just to breed.
And then they'll get high. They'll on purposely mess around with a particular kind of pufferfish and get high off the pufferfish. It's like they're just crazy. It's like,
they're cool.
If you want to party, you go party with the fucking dolphin, I guess.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so like UFO stuff, back to that. Trying to think of something else. Definitely read about the Admiral Byrd thing. Oh, so we used to watch, and he has not posted in eons, and I don't care what's going on in his life. It's none of my business. But we watched Secure Team 10's videos, because he always did really good videos. He has like shit tons of stuff on UFOs.
Yeah, there's a lot there that you can go and binge, and he can point you in a lot of directions if you're curious about learning more about the subject. Because a
couple of his videos I was like, yeah. But then, like, the majority of them, though, were very eye-opening and very, a lot of it was stuff that I had already heard of, but he found more juicy details, or there was more information released about certain things and whatnot. There's all kinds of channels out there, but you have to be careful with what you're looking at and to make sure it's legit. And that's what he would do background stuff. And he was actually invited to the, didn't he meet Bob Lazar? And
yeah, he interviewed Bob Lazar.
Yeah, he did. And he interviewed the other dude. What's his name? The unacknowledged guy.
Oh
shit. I can't remember his name. He actually worked for the Pentagon and stuff and did stuff. Believe me, the government has been covering up a lot of technology, and you can blame, the oil companies and big business for us being stupider. Okay. And us not having certain technologies in our hands right now, because those fuckers are making sure that we are kept oppressed while they create wealth for themselves, which, as we are going into a new phase, Saturn is moving into to Aquarius, and whenever Saturn moves into Aquarius, boy does shit change. It starts a whole new revolution of different things. So if you go back through history and you look at when Saturn is positioned in certain ways, what happens with societies and humanity as a whole. It's like a lot of revolutions will occur and different things like that. So we are in the age of Aquarius now. A lot of people will argue that, but it's not yet, it's not for another 10,000 years. But no. Bullshit, dude, we are in the freaking age of Aquarius, hot and heavy. And I think that it started back in the 60s, but definitely, and because Saturn is moving into Aquarius, you're going to see more of that age of Aquarius vibe come out even more. So in 2020, that's supposed to be the shift. I think there's some YouTube videos out about that. Like, various people are talking about that now. So you can check that out. I read about it online. But I'm pretty sure people have been talking about it in YouTube videos as well. If you want to check it, you can Google it. I Googled it, because I was looking up about progress charts, trying to figure out about what's going on with my Saturn personally when I came across that. So look into it. It's fascinating shit. So you're going to be, I feel like, this big shift that's coming in 2020, there might actually be something that does come out in regards to UFOs. My intuition keeps telling me that, or alien life, or having something to do with...
we had something this year coming through that was like touching the surface of it with Muamua coming through the solar system.
Yeah, that was weird. Okay. And then like all these scholars and stuff are saying that was no meteor, that was no rock, that was metallic, and that was like an alien craft, most likely. There's so much stuff. And then they're putting that new satellite thing out there, which is really like way better than freaking... You're going to see shit that you've never seen before with this new satellite that they're putting out into space. It does... I can't remember what it does. It's not just... It reads like way more spectrums of light or something like that. So it's going to pick up on a lot of stuff that Hubble could never pick up on and stuff. So this new satellite that's coming up is going to completely shock the shit out of people, I think, with what it's going to reveal. You know, it's really kind of creepy because I actually had dreams, like, was it at the beginning of this year or was it the end of 2018, where I dreamed that the space station was crashing to Earth.
It was last year.
It was crashing to Earth, dude. And it was not a pleasant thing. And it was as if something was under attack and something was happening. It was really, really weird. So I hope that doesn't happen. But it's like that. It's just so random and so weird that was so specific. And at that time, I was heavily dreaming about UFOs a lot. I know you've had UFO dreams.
Oh, well. I've had lots.
Anybody else out there have UFO dreams? Or dream of being abducted or seeing space creatures or going somewhere else? I've definitely had that, like when I was younger. And when I was in my late 20s, I was in like an egg-shaped craft hurtling through space. It was kind of weird. Very Mork and Mindy. But it didn't look like that, okay? But it's kind of funny because the cosmic egg is very symbolic. And that egg shape. And if you go and you research UFOs deep enough, there's going to be that subject matter will come up, that egg shape. What is the show? The Ancient Aliens? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
There's like
Ancient
a
Aliens.
gazillion different seasons of that, you guys. If you want to be entertained, go watch some of that shit. Some of their stuff is like, I'm just like, okay. But they actually touch on a lot of subject matter that is legit. So that's some fascinating crap. Definitely look into that if you haven't watched that. If you want to like get your mind blown a little bit, or it's gonna cause you to think, okay, for sure. And it'll bring up subject matter that will make you want to go research more about certain things, to dive into it a little bit more, which is what I've definitely done. You know, I was like always interested in the Book of Enoch and stuff like that. And then when they did a whole show on that, I was like, what? I watched it and I was just like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah, it is fascinating.
It's kind of funny because it was my point of view anyway. And then here's somebody literally saying it on the TV. It's like, what? Okay, I'm not alone. So, yeah, check that out. So anyways, anything else?
I think that covers it.
Yep, pretty much.
For this podcast, at least.
Yeah, I mean, the other one we did was even longer than this, I think it was, right? It was pretty long. So anyway, if you guys want to suggest any things that you would like us to discuss or topics, please do comment in the drop-down box below, comment section, actually. And please give us some feedback. Tell us your experiences with the paranormal or UFOs, or if you've seen UFOs. I really like to hear when people have seen UFOs, because I feel like there's so many people that have seen ghosts and had that kind of creepy experience, but not very many people have seen UFOs.
Or at least don't come out to say
I know,
anything
because
about
they're
it.
too scared. Well, don't be scared. Okay, just come out and friggin' say it. It's more common than you think. Everybody has cell phones now with cameras in them. We pick up on shit. Ha ha, fucking stupid assholes trying to cover up their crap can't get away with it anymore, can they? Because we are all connected. So anyway, yes, please leave us feedback. We'd love to hear your stories. I freaking love to talk to everybody who leaves comments. I do. It might take me a little bit because I get busy, but I do respond to everybody who leaves comments. So we thank you so much for being with us here tonight. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support. There is personal tarot reading information on all kinds of stuff in the drop-down box, information on how to contact us for those kind of things. And we thank you for joining us. We love you guys.
See you in the next one.
Bye.